So should you buy an old house? It can be a rewarding experience buying a house that has lots of character based on its age, and the price may seem quite reasonable, but it can be a nightmare and a money pit. Hi, this is Bruce Boyes from Homes and Life, affiliated with homesandlife.com. Today we're discussing some of the challenges involved with purchasing an old house. If you do have questions, just put them in the comments below and I will answer you. And thank you to those who have subscribed to our video channel. As a realtor, when I have a buyer that wants to purchase an old house, I inform them right up front that old houses come with baggage. Plenty of questions arise, such as which parts of the house are original? What renovations have been done to the house? Are there any structural issues? And what about safety issues? An old house can be spectacular. Often there are architectural features that are just not included in the newer houses. There are sometimes very interesting historical details about the old house as well that can add a different flavor. And the parcels of land that the old houses are situated on tend to be larger in general with mature landscaping. So there are many nice features about an old house. But along with the nice features, there can be a number of challenges that come with an old house. Houses were used differently years ago, and this means that the floor plans or the layout may not be as functional for today's usage or living. So let's take a look at some of the possible issues so that you can be informed when you make your decision about buying an old house. Let's start at the foundation, which is integral to the condition of the house overall. What is the house sitting on? If your foundation is not in good condition, the rest of the house may have numerous problems appearing. The really older heritage homes could have been built on half logs or stones, and you can use your imagination to see some of the problems with this. Eventually builders decided to use concrete, but I have seen instances in old foundations where, to make the concrete stretch a bit further, the builders put in rocks and they put in bits of metal to the concrete mix. It meant that they could get away without buying more concrete, but it made for a weaker foundation. Sometime later, cement blocks, or what they call cinder blocks, were used for foundation walls. The theory was good, and I've seen some cinder block foundations that were in very good condition many years later, while others were bowing inwards, causing the blocks and the mortar to separate, and water was seeping in. But eventually standards improved and solid concrete foundations became the norm. But even these need to be inspected for cracks and breaks and leaks. Also in the 70s, a few pressure-treated wood foundations started to appear, and a few are still being built today. Any foundation needs to go deeper than the frost penetration, or damage from the frost heaving can occur. And as you can guess, remedying any of these situations could be quite costly. Moving up from the foundation, we look to the floor joists. Is there any rot? Have termites or other insects done any damage? Excess moisture at some point in time may have contributed to some mold issues. Have previous modifications weakened the joists? And are the joists sagging, either from poor design or poor construction? Some of these issues can be repaired using common sense, and others may require the services of a structural engineer, especially if you're considering changes to the floor plan. Next, we will look at the walls. There are only a few ways that walls have been constructed over the years, but you should know what you have before considering renovations. While you are figuring out how the house was built, you'll also want to investigate the insulation. Over time, insulation has greatly improved. Years ago, there was little or no insulation. And then people started using old newspaper and cardboard, and gradually that improved to wood chips and sawdust. And then along came fiberglass and asbestos, urea formaldehyde, vermiculite, and cellulose. Today, I think most of us realize that there are health hazards involved with asbestos and urea formaldehyde and some of the vermiculites. Also, old single pane windows have next to no insulation value. So, do you plan on keeping the old drafty character windows or changing them over to something that has a higher insulation factor? And while the walls are being considered, the next question that comes up is, what about the wiring? Is it the old knob and tube wiring? If so, it really should be updated, even though it is legal still in some locations. Most insurance companies will want to know about the wiring and the electrical service. If the house has only a 60 or 80 amp service, the insurance company may decline providing insurance coverage, or may charge a very high rate until it is upgraded, and usually the upgrade will need to be done within a specific period of time. In some parts of the world, old paint can be an issue. Years ago, lead was used in paint, and it is now deemed as a health hazard. So in some locations, regulations have been put in place to control the sale of homes that have lead-based paint. Then look up, way up. There's a roof up there with some kind of covering on it to keep moisture out of the house. Before looking at the condition of the roof covering, look at the lines of the roof. Is it straight? Or does it look like a sway-backed horse? I'll give you a hint. If it looks like a sway-backed horse, there could be some structural issues here. Then look at the roof covering itself. Is it a metal roof? Is it wood shingles or shakes that are covering the roof? And are there any gaps or missing pieces? Maybe the roof has been upgraded to an asphalt shingle roof. If so, what condition is it in? Old houses tend to have more architectural features than newer homes, and sometimes this translates into a more complicated roof, meaning more expensive if it needs replacing. Next, look at the systems, which are the heating, the plumbing, and fireplaces, etc. Old houses had heating systems that were not very efficient at all. These included coal burners, oil-fired furnaces, and even some wood furnaces. There was often a messy opening for the fuel to enter the basement too. Chimneys sometimes got partially plugged and cracked, creating fire hazards. But fortunately, these days are mostly gone, and the heating is usually done by a natural gas or a propane furnace or boiler with a much higher efficiency. Some locations insist on a high efficiency or an HE furnace if upgrades are done. And similarly, most hot water tanks are gas-fired as well. But in some parts of the world, electric furnaces and electric hot water tanks are an option. Also, the old character house may have one or more fireplaces, which will also need to be inspected for insurance and safety purposes. There could be cracks or creosote buildup in the chimney. The plumbing itself may be iron piping, brass piped, galvanized steel, or copper piping. For a few years, a gray plastic pipe was used called poly-B or polybutylene. It was less expensive than copper, but it did have some leakage problems that showed up after 10 or 15 years. Aging pipes can cause slow drainage and low water pressure. Insurance companies, again, will ask about plumbing as well. I will always recommend a home inspection when looking at a house, and this will provide an objective observation of the house and its various components. But if you feel that the home inspection has not gone into enough detail in a specific area, then call in a tradesman for that area of concern and get their professional opinion as well. Two other crucial areas to check on are the fresh water supply and the wastewater removal. If the house is in town, it should have a city or municipal water supply and a common sewer system. If the house is in a more rural area, then there is a possibility of a freshwater well and an in-ground septic system. These should both be inspected by a professional, as there can be health issues arising from old malfunctioning systems. Well, if all this information has not turned you away from buying an old house, great. Some of these old houses are a treasure and should be preserved. A lot of today's architectural styles do not have the features and characteristics of the old houses. And if by chance the old house that you're looking at has been designated as a heritage house, then you should check with the city to find out what that entails. In some cases, it reduces the extent of renovations that can be made to the house. Now, I do hope that I've given you some tips to help you as you consider purchasing an old house. This has been a short discussion about a topic that could take considerable time to go into detail. And again, I thank you for watching this video, and if you feel there has been some information of value to you, please subscribe below. There are more videos to come. Remember, life is an adventure. I'll talk to you again soon.